This is Aaron with Siegfried's Motorworks. Originally, Tyler was supposed to take you on this ride. However, today I will be taking you. This is a 2005 Kawasaki Concours ZG1000 Sport Touring. This beauty has 74,000 miles on it. Original miles. I have all the service receipts, everything from mile one, day one on this bike. The dude that owned this thing was an absolute fanatic for maintenance, which is good for you if you're the one buying it. Anyways, we're going to take you on the ride on this one and see what you think. And, yeah. Couple quick things before we even get going here. Cool features, Kawasaki clock and heated grips. Also some kind of throttle lock, which I'm not really sure. Oh, right like that. Has a throttle lock on it. Cool. Alright. This is a carb bike. So you have the old-fashioned choke. Also, my girl here, we have named her Lucy. She's going to be going with us today too. It's a big bike, man. Big, sturdy, nice mirrors. It's like driving a tractor trailer truck with mirrors like that. Holy crap, man. You can see the whole world behind you on this thing, man. This is a 4-cylinder 1000cc sport touring. Most of your sport touring bikes today, they put a lot bigger motors in them now. Your BMW K1600, your Kawasaki Concours 1400, your BMW 1200s, 1300s. Who else? Yamaha did the SJ 1300s. This is a little bit smaller of a motor, but for the time, man, this thing was an absolute rocket. And this one handles awesome. Got a little bit of wind noise there, so we'll see how that pans out on the video. But of all the bikes that I've ridden sport touring wise, this one is honestly one of the most comfortable. It lacks in features. I mean, it does have a glove box, 2 glove boxes. It does have the bags in the back, but as far as other features, you know, no radio or GPS or anything like that. So it is a little bit barbaric in terms of that, but honestly, man, you don't need that. All you need is 2 wheels in the road to have a good time. It is a little bit of a brisk evening here in Pennsylvania. There went Kyle Heaver. It is a little bit of a brisk evening here in Pennsylvania, so I'm going to go ahead and flip on these heated grips. Man! And those things get hot right away. Oh my goodness. On a cold night, man, you don't have to worry about getting cold hands with this thing, that's for sure. Those grips came, I don't even think I had them on for 10 seconds and they're already hot and heavy. But, yeah, anyways, this bike, like I said, 74,000 miles. One owner bike. This guy bought it brand new. And he has a copy of the factory MSO, the factory build sheet, every single thing. Even when he went in to get a turn signal bulb replaced, he had it, he has it documented, which is honestly pretty cool. You don't see a lot of that really on any bike, much less, I gotta turn those grips off, man, they're too hot. You don't see that on bikes that are, you know, brand new with 5,000 miles on them, 10,000 miles on them. You don't even see guys keeping service records like this. So yeah, that's definitely a huge selling point. And it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't normally take in a bike with such high miles, especially not like a sport touring bike. A Harley, maybe, you know, like a bigger V-twin, but this thing, you know, I took it for a test drive. I took it for a nice little spin before I bought it, and was super impressed with how smooth and well maintained it was. So that's why I ended up, you know, bringing it in. And it did not disappoint. And no lack of power. If you're looking for a bike as far as comfort and, you know, speed, there's nowhere you can't go with this bike. Which I'm kind of curious. I didn't really get to talk to the guy all that much about, you know, where and what and how he put all these miles on, but 74,000 miles on a 2005. I'm sure this bike has seen a bunch of roads, a bunch of different states, and a lot of different adventures, cool stories. I'm sure it can go with it. We're gonna get out here on this straightaway real quick and give this this throttle lock a nice little test. Nice and smooth around the turns. One thing I will say about these heated grips, because this is just an add-on to your actual grips. This isn't like a, nowadays most of the time when you do a heated grip, it's actually a the grip itself. This is just an added on thing. There's a little bit of bulk to the unit on the bottom of it. They have a position that is not counterintuitive. It's in a nice spot, like it's not affecting my hand, but I like to play with things as I ride, so I definitely feel it's there, and I just want to sit there and play with it. For a big bike, you don't honestly notice the weight much. I mean, it's definitely, Kawasaki did a good job of putting a powerful enough motor with it, and they have the suspension set up. It is a little bit of a stouter bike, so short riders might have a bit of an issue with it, but I think your people of average height aren't going to complain. I don't know how you're supposed to do this thing. Oh, right there, man. We're alive at 5, baby. Nice little throttle lock, and look how smooth this thing is, man. I'm on a tarred and cindered road right now, so you see a little bit of shake in the bars, but yeah, man, you get a nice little stretch. That's awesome. That is pretty slick. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to do it one-handed, though. I'm sure somebody watching this will say the proper way to do it and question my intelligence, but whatever. One thing I will say, now, I mean, I'm a little bit taller. I'm 6'1" or 2", depending on the day. And normally windscreens, I can't stand them. They're normally right in my line of sight. This one is not in my line of sight. I'm actually looking out over it real nice. I could be another 6 inches, no, yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches shorter, and I'd still be good. And I mean, if you're this short, I don't think you're riding this thing anyway. Seating position wise, nice and upright. I don't know if this is the OEM seat, but if it is, Kawasaki knocked it out of the park, and they should really get whoever put this seat together for them, bring them back, because a lot of times Kawasaki stock seats suck. And welcome to Pennsylvania. A lot of time Kawasaki stock seating sucks, man. Almost every Vulcan or Ninja that I've ever had for sale has had an aftermarket seat on it, and if it didn't, the guy complained that the stock seat sucks and I want to put an aftermarket seat on it. So if this is stock, Kawasaki killed it on this one. And for a big touring bike, man, this thing is zippy. I mean, time of her life, man. She can't even put to words how much fun she's having. But I'm not sure how this is looking for you guys either, because I am in kind of a downward position. Man, this thing just handles like it's on rails too. I'm actually really impressed with this bike. I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I rode it when we bought it. I test rode it just to make sure everything was Gucci gang on it then. And I rode it to fill it up with gas after we serviced it to make sure everything was cool on it again, and to have a full tank of gas in it. But outside of that, I have not put miles on this bike up until now, and I am very impressed with this bike. Wind deflection wise, if I'm in like this, and I have shorts on because I was working today, but it has these wind deflectors here. That's pulling wind into the motor to keep it nice and cool, because it does have so much fairing on it. But as far as protection for your body, it's got this big body on the front that's helpful for keeping the wind off of your legs. So a simple little spread out with your legs gets the wind on you, and you just let your legs naturally rest against the tank. And I can imagine on a cold ride with these lava grips that are on it, and the wind deflection, this thing's probably nice to ride in the cold. That's one thing with Kawasaki's, man. That gearbox on Kawasaki's is always nice. Most of your Suzuki's have a real loud gearbox, and it's kind of like you almost feel like you're hurting the bike every time you shift it. One thing Kawasaki's always done really nicely is their gearboxes have always been great. Man, this thing rips. Sorry to cut off short there, but you almost have to watch on this thing what your speed is. This thing is just so smooth. It's like, for 70 miles an hour, this does not feel like 70 miles an hour at all. Like, that is really impressive. Kawasaki, like I said, if someone at Kawasaki happens upon this video, you guys did a great job on this bike. I like the Concourses in general, like the Concours 1400s. I haven't spent a ton of time on those bikes, but I've spent enough to know that I like them. But price point wise, they're still kind of salty for what they are. If you can score one of these things decently priced, like at a dealership in central Pennsylvania for under $2,000, fully serviced and ready to go with all the factory service manuals, that's a buy. If you don't want to come to me to buy it, and you can find one in your area for a deal, man, go ride it. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a nicer riding bike than this thing. Oh, this thing actually has 2 trips. 2. That's dope. 2 trips on an analog trip. I've never seen that before either. Cool, man. Locking gas cap too. It's pretty standard. Love these Pennsylvania roads, man. Cinders everywhere. I think this thing, without a fairing on, would rip Wallies all day. Because this is a responsive little minx, man. This is second gear. Wow. Alright, They're back at it. On the way up to St. Freed's Motorworks this morning. I actually had a chance to ride this bike last night, and I'm super impressed with this thing. Again, I put a couple miles on it, about 30 miles I put on this thing since yesterday now, and like I said, I'm really impressed. At nighttime, this thing has a great set of headlights on it. The low beam is a little lackluster, but that's really common for, you know, older bikes. The high beam, though, is absolutely wicked. It gives a great illumination, really spreads the beam out nice. As far as a bike to ride at nighttime, I know, but I personally shy away from riding at nighttime just because my vision isn't necessarily the greatest at nighttime. That's why mostly any bike you see me on at nighttime has day makers or HIDs or LEDs, something in it to really throw some light. This bike just has the conventional headlight, and for a nighttime ride, this thing was actually pretty great. But just riding this thing, I'm liking this bike more and more and more and more. The biggest downfall about this bike, the one thing that's going to keep somebody from wanting to park this bike in their garage, is that it's ugly. And that's not to say ugly in a way where you could never love it. It's just ugly in a way where 80%, probably 90%, probably 95% of the population isn't gonna walk up to your bike when it's parked and be like, that's the coolest bike I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, this concourse wasn't built to be a showstopper. These concourses weren't built to, you know, pull in and win a trophy right off the bat. Maybe if there's like a sport touring or a retro bike, yeah, but this bike is just pure bore. Everything about it is function. That's really what it boils down to. Most of your, I mean, everything on this thing is just, excuse me, everything on this thing is just set up for function. And that's not to say it's not, it's a niche bike, I think, because I mean, me personally, now I have a little bit weirder of taste, but me personally, I find this bike pretty attractive. But there again too, I mean, if this bike's in a parking lot, I'm more so looking at it. If I walk over to look at this thing, I'm going to be looking at it to see, number one, how many miles does it have on it, and number two, just the general overall shape, because typically your sport touring guys are like the Vikings of back in the day, man. I mean, they are hard for miles. They just go, and they most of the time these sport touring bikes have a pile of miles on them, which, you know, this one's 74,000 miles, and typically they're in pretty rough shape though. Where this one is, fortunately for myself and whoever is lucky enough to be able to park this thing in their garage, this thing is very well maintained. For a bike with 74,000 miles on it, this thing is an absolute rocket ship. Super tight, everything seems really nice on it. I think if you put tape over the odometer and had somebody take this thing for, you know, one, walk around it, and then two, ride it, if you covered this little line here up but nobody could see the miles, and you put a guessing game of how many miles are on it, I don't honestly think you're going to get anyone that's saying even half the miles that are actually on this bike. But that's not to say it doesn't have its flaws. Like I said, biggest brutes that I have with this Kawasaki Concours ZG1000s are carbureted bikes. They have these really nice bins here, but they lock with the key. So if you unlock them, they'll sit here and flap. Like this one's unlocked. So this one will just sit here and flap. Not really a secure way to put your storage in. Plus, if you get up to speeds, these panels actually float like this up at speeds. If you don't have them locked, I mean, that can be locked. It's that simple. But if you would like any kind of accessibility to your, to your dash panels, you have to have it unlocked. The other thing that I'm not a huge fan of on this bike, obviously, is just the overall look of it. It's one of those eclectic tastes. It's definitely something where you're gonna either love it or hate it, or unless you're looking for a purpose-built bike and you have a budget in mind, you know, then that's a different story. But outside of that, on this thing, it's a little tall. That's the other thing I would say. I mean, for me, I actually like it. It makes it ride so much nicer. But for, you know, for a shorter rider, they're definitely going to have trouble getting up and over and on this thing. The other thing is it does have a center stand. However, that center stand is next to useless, because unless you have a friend over who is a semi-professional bodybuilder, you're going to really struggle to get this thing up on a center stand and not feel like you're hurting the bike in the process. But outside of that, man, there's really not a lot I can brutz about on this thing. I mean, it runs great, they ride great. For a big bike like this, it handles awesome. Really comfortable seating position. That's one of the biggest things, is typically as I'm riding really any bike for the first time, and like I put a couple miles on it, I get pain in my wrist until it gets used to it. And I also get some pain in my lower, like my lower back, especially if I'm riding sport bikes and stuff like that. And this bike, I don't really have any of that going down, just because it is a super comfortable position. I mean, you're basically sitting all but upright with just a little bit of lean. It's a really natural, comfortable position to sit in. And yeah, hold on, we're gonna get out of here. The only other thing I don't like about it is no speakers. Typically your sport touring market, I mean, everyone should be wearing a helmet to ride. I mean, you shouldn't be ever riding around without a helmet on. Realistically, everybody should be wearing a full face helmet too. You shouldn't be in half shells, or 3/4 shells, or, you know, skid lids and novelty helmets. I mean, everybody on the road on a motorcycle, to be safe, should be in a full face helmet. And that being said, I don't know how well typically these bikes, like the BMW K1600s, I know now that's a lot newer of a bike, but it is a similar bike to these. They have a full sound system on them with a helmet on. That full sound system is I don't even know how to say it nicely. It's pitiful at best, and that's not a side effect of. That is not a side effect of, you know, the bike. It's just the bike. Most people wearing full face helmets. I don't think BMW would put a lot of money into that sound system. Same deal here. Kawasaki obviously put no money into it, because most of your people riding in full face helmets anyway. And with a full face helmet on, there's a ton of great selections of aftermarket Bluetooth speakers that can go into those helmets and give you, and then those can give you pretty remarkable audio quality, as opposed to subpar quality with, you know, some kind of cheaper powered speaker in the dash of this. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I think it's just one more thing to break on something like this, because it's not something where they're gonna put like Harley Davidson does, where they're putting, you know, a 4 or 5 and a 6 speaker sound system in their bikes. But you're in two different markets there for what you're trying to accomplish as well. Alright, if you watched this video this far, thank you so much. If you haven't yet, please click that thumbs up button and give a little shop like mine a little bit of support. Hopefully you enjoyed the ride with me. I know most of the videos, Tyler's the one taking you for the ride, but I hope you enjoyed this ride with me today. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It, again, helps a small shop like mine grow, and it's free. and that would mean the world to me, especially considering you just rode on a motorcycle with me for the last however long we edited this down to.